For those who want to join on our YouTube channel, you can go to, let's look for NAMI Santa Clara County, and we are live streaming out there. There we go. Okay. Oh, I see Ann has joined in. That's great. Okay, let me make sure that I have enabled the chat so everyone can chat with each other.
Hi, and Rovina, it looks like I'll need to share the screen, but it looks like that needs to be enabled too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Here you go. Perfect. Let's give it like a minute and we will get started. So I think I've been able to enable the chat for everyone. Okay. Perfect. Okay. All right. Let's begin then. So good evening, everyone, and wishing all of you a very, very happy new year. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Rovina Nimbalkar, and I'm the Executive Director at NAMI Santa Clara County. Before we begin today's presentation, here are some updates about NAMI Santa Clara County. Our helpline is up and running from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, by phone as well as email. And we also have a walk-in for a helpline from between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Our after-hour family support is available on evenings and weekends on the helpline. Support groups are all listed on our website. Our website is www.namisantaclara.org and org, and offered over Zoom also. And then we also have some support groups that are in our office. For education classes such as family to family, familiar to familiar, persona to persona, peer to peer, provider education, you can contact our helpline number 408-453-0400 and select option 1 for further details. NAMI Basics is on demand and you can take it on our website at your own pace. And so is the NAMI Homefront. The next FaithNet MH101 is going to be on February 15 at 11:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. If you're interested, you can call our helpline number and ask for more details, and someone will give you that information. Our community peer program continues to match via hospitals as well as self-referrals. And so that's about our program. Okay, so NAMI Walk Silicon Valley. I know all of you had attended, most of you had attended NAMI Walk Silicon Valley in October, and we already have a date for this year. And can you believe it is already 2024? So our date for this year's NAMI Walk Silicon Valley is going to be Saturday, October 5th. So please save the date. The website for the walk is not up yet, so we'll have that launched very soon, and we will send out an email with all the information, all the details. As we start planning out this year's NAMI Walk Silicon Valley, we still have 10 more months to plan this event. Okay, so we have two presenters here. We have Alexia Worsham and Tiffany Austin. Alexia works part-time at NAMI Santa Clara County as a teacher and as a presenter. Alexia speaks about her lived experience as a family member from two perspectives: as a child of a parent who was diagnosed with schizophrenia and a parent of children with mental illness, and as a parent of children with mental health conditions. Tiffany Austin was first introduced to NAMI through her mental health care provider. She works at NAMI as a community and media relation liaison, and she will be speaking about her lived experience. Today's presentation is about our program called Ending the Silence. We also call it ETS. And I'm going to hand it over to the experts here, to Alexia and to Tiffany. Over to you. Before they start taking over, You can put your questions in the Q&A section, and you can continue chatting in the chat sections, and we will address the questions towards the end of the presentation. Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Rovina. And thank you, everyone, for being here. It's great that we're able to do this meeting virtually so that we can all attend from wherever we are. I am going to show you the presentation that we show. Ending the Silence is one of several community presentations that NAMI has. And this one is for the kind of teenage audience. It's for students in middle school and high school age. And we have, there are 3 versions of the presentation. There's the one that we give in the classroom to students, and then there's also a version that we present to teachers and staff of schools, and then one that we show for families, like if the school has a parent meeting. And so that's the version of the presentation that I'm going to show you all right now, is the version for families. And what this is it's we do this presentations in pairs. We have 2 presenters. There's one who's generally a family member like me, and I show a PowerPoint presentation, show some slides, and then we have a youth presenter, we call it, which is a person who shares their personal story. And just I've been very excited to be doing these presentations for a few years now, and really have enjoyed it. And I've just noticed consistently how much the students especially respond to, also the adults, but the students respond to seeing a young person share their story. So I've really seen the power of storytelling, and the way that's really, I think, the most valuable part of the presentation is the opportunity that young people have to see somebody in real life, just sharing their personal experience. So I'm going to share my screen here now. And as Rovina said, if you do have questions, you can, sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that I've clicked to, I think there's supposed to be a button so that you can hear the sound, because there are a couple of videos in here, and I'm not sure that that's enabled. So let me try this out here. Bear with me. There are a couple videos though, so if the sound isn't working, I may have to pause to start this out again. But hopefully you can all see this screen now. Sorry, for some reason my cursor is giving me a little bit of trouble here. Tiffany, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen? Do you see the PowerPoint slide?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'm trying to show.
Oh, it's okay. Take your time.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it to be full screen because it doesn't look like it's, here we go.
Oh. Yes, we can see it. Perfect.
Thank you. That's awesome. Okay.
Wonderful.
So, this is to just getting started. Happy to have a friendly audience here that knows all about NAMI. Generally, what I would do right here is introduce myself and explain to the audience that this presentation is from NAMI, which is the largest, as you know, grassroots organization in the country for mental health, and our mission is all about education and support and advocacy and awareness for programs. And everybody who's part of NAMI has what we call lived experience. We're not professionals, we're not counselors or doctors, we're people who have personal experience being affected by these issues in our own lives. And I myself am a family member. I've had several members of my family and in different generations affected by mental illness, starting with my mother, who had a diagnosis of schizophrenia and spent some time in Napa State Hospital when I was a toddler. And one of the reasons why I really like being part of this program and bringing these presentations to schools is because in the 1960s and 70s, there was even less awareness and talking in the open about mental health conditions than there is now. And so when I was a teenager and my mom had another crisis, it was really frightening to me and my sister, and we were really kind of embarrassed about it. We didn't know anybody else who had this kind of situation in their family. And so I just remember that being a very lonely experience. And so that's one of the reasons why I especially enjoy talking to teenagers about this topic. And if we were here in person, this would be the part where I would ask everybody in the audience to raise their hands if they know somebody who has a mental health condition. And I know this is a different kind of audience. Like I say, you all are part of NAMI. And so I'm sure most of you would be raising your hands if we were here in person. But I just want to remind everybody here, I know this isn't a very interactive presentation here, but I'm glad that we could show it to you. And you can use the chat feature to type in a message. And if there's anybody that, if there's any kind of question that you need me to address immediately, somebody just speak up because I can't really see that at the same time. But otherwise, we can answer questions at the end here. And so here, the purpose of this presentation is just to talk about what is mental health. What is mental health? What are what we call the warning signs? How does somebody know if they or somebody that they care about is possibly experiencing symptoms of a mental health condition? And then what can they do about that? And how to get help. And so just for openers, mental health conditions are health conditions. That's the main thing that we want to get across to people. They're health conditions that aren't anybody's fault. And so they shouldn't be anything to be ashamed of or embarrassed to talk about. The thing that distinguishes mental health conditions from other kinds of medical or health conditions is they affect the way a person thinks and feels, and possibly how they act, and this can affect their behavior. And when it comes to young people, we just want to make the point that you know, when a young person is affected by a mental health condition, it really affects all aspects of their life. It's going to affect their ability to attend school and participate in activities, their ability to learn, their relationships with other people, and just, you know, ability to kind of meet the milestones or that they're expecting to. And so that's why it's important, because really mental health just affects every aspect of a person's life. And part of NAMI's mission is to share just the information. Like I was saying, I think people really get the most benefit out of hearing a real person's story, but we also do share facts and figures and statistics, and NAMI gets the, you know, latest up-to-date information from the National Institutes of Mental Health and from the CDC. And so these are the kind of statistics that we want to share. And like if we were in a room, we would, you know, when we ask people to raise their hands, if they know somebody that kind of is a visual, they can look around and see that a lot of people are affected by these conditions. We do know that, you know, this is also not something that is just an issue for adults. That really 1 out of 5 children experience a mental health condition in any given year. And one of the really sad statistics to me is that about half of children who do experience a mental health condition don't get the treatment that they need. At least definitely not as soon as they could use it. We know that this leads to really serious consequences too. That, about half of the students who end up dropping out of high school have a mental health condition, and as many as 3/4 of the youth who are involved in the juvenile justice system have a mental health condition. And definitely suicide is a serious issue, and it's more common than many people might think among young people. So this is why it's really serious. Can you let me know if you can hear the sound on this? This video actually has subtitles, and in the beginning it doesn't have sound.
Alexia, is it supposed to have sound yet?
Not yet, and that's
Okay.
part of the gimmick of this video.
Oh, no worries. Okay. Thank you. I'll let you know once we can hear it. Thank you.
We should be able to hear it now.
Okay. Unfortunately, on my end, I wasn't able to hear anything.
I can't hear anything too.
You can't? Okay.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I think for right now, I'll just go ahead. But there are some videos later, and before the next one, I'll try and see if I can get the sound going again. How does that sound?
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. So as I said, mental health conditions are they're health conditions, and we're not trying to teach anybody how to diagnose any specific disorder or condition or anything, but we just provide education about them. And so this is just an example. Like if we were all in a room, I might ask people to share if there are any conditions that they've heard of. But these are some of the most common conditions that people might see in young people. I mentioned my mother had a diagnosis of schizophrenia when I was growing up. I also have 2 children, and I have twins who are now 20 years old. My sons both have autism spectrum disorder, which is not a mental illness. It's a developmental disorder. But like a lot of people, one of the things that I've learned is like a lot of people with autism also have a co-occurring mental health condition. And that's the case for both of my sons. One of my sons has anxiety, and that's one of the disorders that's listed on this slide here. And my other son has a pretty severe attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. He has the inattentive variety of ADHD, which was something that I never even heard of until my son got his diagnosis. So there are a lot of different conditions, but what they all have in common is that they're all health conditions. They're all things that affect the way a person's brain works, the way a person thinks and feels, and how they behave. And what I think is really important about this presentation, about reaching people and who are younger and their families, is that it really is important, like I said earlier, that up to half of the kids who are affected don't get help, and don't get it as soon as they need it. And early identification and intervention is really important. And I'm just going to speak up as a mom here to say, one of the things that's really important is to take advantage of that period of time when your child is under 18, because you do have the ability to get more help for your child and to be an advocate for them when they're still a minor. And you can request assessments and you can consent to treatment and you can do things like that and move the ball along and advocate for your child. Whereas, this all gets a little more difficult once they're 18. And you have to get their consent for everything. So it's a good idea to get started on it for that reason, while you still have some ability to drive the bus when your child's still a minor. So what we want to talk about here is what we call warning signs. These are just things that you might notice about somebody that could indicate that they're dealing with a mental health condition. And we want you then to know how to reach out to that person. And because the person we're talking about is young here, you know who you're going to need to work with to help get your child help. And that means that's going to mean working with the school, as well as with your child and also your healthcare providers. And together it's going to take a village, but hopefully if you're all working together and can communicate with each other and be open, you can get the resources and support that your child needs. So we call these warning signs. And here again, I just want to emphasize that we're not professionals. We're not trying to teach anybody how to diagnose anything. But because mental health conditions affect the way somebody thinks and feels, these are the things that you might notice about somebody that could mean that they need help. And so these are just things to pay attention to. And some of these things are feelings or thoughts, and some of them could also be physical sensations that somebody could feel. One of my sons who has anxiety has told me that he's learned to notice some of his bodily sensations actually, or how he notices that his anxiety is affecting him. So certainly having overwhelming fear for no reason, or, that can be signs of anxiety, but that can also come with feeling like your heart is racing. My son also says that he gets a feeling like a lump in his throat, or feeling like he's about to start crying. And those are some sensations that he's learned to notice, because that means his anxiety is bothering him. Some of these things are pretty straightforward, like mental health conditions are health conditions, but they don't have, we don't have the same kind of diagnostic tests for them. It's not as straightforward as like going and getting an x-ray or a blood test or something to get a diagnosis. So some of the signs, what we call warning signs, could be a little bit harder to could be not so straightforward or obvious is what I'm saying. So some of these, like this one on here, seeing, hearing, or believing things that aren't real, I think that's something that we can all say is pretty clearly something that we would all identify as being a sign of a problem, like somebody who has a diagnosis of schizophrenia, like my mom might have had, might experience these symptoms, seeing or hearing things that other people don't see or hear. But some of these other things, like feeling very sad, that's not quite so straightforward. And it's also something that really could happen to anyone. So with something like that, it's more a matter of degree and intensity, and just noticing if something has changed. Something's really out of the ordinary for a person. Like I say, if you're feeling very sad and that's going on for a long time, and there's no identifiable reason for why you would feel that way, and it's really interfering with your ability to do the things that you would ordinarily need to do, then that could be a sign that there's something going on, like possibly depression. This other one, first one on this list, extreme difficulty concentrating, that again is something that could happen to anyone. But if you're somebody like my son who has severe ADHD, then that's something that would interfere with his ability to do just about anything, and it would affect him on a day-to-day basis. So that's something that's a sign of a more serious issue going on. And again, with the intense worries or fears, that could happen to all of us, but if it's so intense that it's preventing you from being able to leave your house or go to work or go to school, it's getting in the way of what you need to do, then it could be a sign of a more serious condition. The last things on this list are not exactly symptoms. What they are is what we would call coping behaviors, such as, using laxatives or not eating or throwing up, or using alcohol or drugs or other kinds of self-harming behaviors. Those are things that first want to say coping behaviors are something that everybody does. So these are not just things that people with mental health conditions do, but these kind of coping behaviors that are really unhealthy and that could actually harm somebody are things could be a sign that somebody's dealing with a mental health condition. But what they are is these are things that just everybody does, like I say, things to attempt to feel better in a situation that they find stressful or that they don't know how to handle or that they have trouble coping with. We all do things to help ourselves feel better. One of mine when I was a young person is I used to smoke cigarettes, and I'm almost surprised that's not listed on the slide here. But that's something that I started doing when I was a teenager, and it was very hard for me to quit later. And when we're talking to audiences of young people and their families, we also want to bring up the subject of bullying too, because there are some things that could be warning signs or a type of warning signs. These are things that you might notice that could be an indication that your child is experiencing being bullied at school. I know this is a really tough subject, but it's just something to definitely be aware of and try to be in communication with the school about if you're concerned that something's going on. I know one of my sons had more problems with this than the other, my son with anxiety, sadly, and it can really make it hard for a kid who's already having a hard time at school. So I know just as a mom here again, I almost I almost feel bad when this slide comes up and I'm talking to families because I almost don't even know what to tell them to do, except that it is something that we all need to be aware of and be there for our kids, and mainly just listen to them, try and pay attention to something that they're possibly not talking about, and be open so that they will talk to you. I know what was really hard for my son was what they call the like unstructured part of the days at school, like when they're out on the playground, or when they're on lunch break or at recess or whatever. And so those were the parts of the school day that were really hard for him, because when he's in the classroom and the teacher's around, it's kind of like safe space. And so I know my one son, basically in 5th and 6th grade, he spent most of his breaks either going to the library or staying in the classroom because he had a hard time with other kids in those unstructured times. And often, it's hard because the teachers would tell you there's not much that they can do because they weren't around when whatever was happened. So anyway, yeah, these are just things to pay attention to, because they could be part of the problem that you have to talk to your school about. And on the flip side of this too is just as a parent, I think none of us wants to think that our kid might be the one who's bullying somebody else. But somebody's that kid's parents. So these are things that that you also should be alert to, maybe because if you notice them, it could be a sign that that your child is picking on one of the other kids. But again, so when it comes to all of these things, all these types of warning signs, it's really a matter of judgment. And this is why it's important you know your kid better than anybody else. And so you're going to notice if you see something change. And if something just seems to be a problem based on just how intense the feelings are, how long they're lasting, and just how much distress they're causing in terms of, how much is it really getting in the way of your kid being able to do what they need to do. And there's also something that comes up, and when you have to start interacting with your kid's school more frequently when they're having problems is there's what you see at home when you're with your family members, and then there's what the teachers see at school with your kid. And so I think a lot of us who are parents realize after a while that those are two different things, just like all of us. Like, we all behave at work one way, and then we're how we are with our family when we're at home, and those are two different environments, and we behave differently. Same thing with our kids. So there's what your teachers would see in a student, and then there's what you would see at home. And when your kid is having problems, that's when it gets important to communicate with the school and be open with each other so that you can work together to address getting your kid the help that they need. So like I said, these are some things that you would see at home that would be the flip side of what they might be seeing at school. And then with younger children, there might be some slight differences in terms of, how they behave at home rather than how teenagers are. Let's see. Just trying to remember, there was something that I saw when I was reviewing this presentation that reminded me of it, but now I'm not seeing it. Sorry, I'm going back here. I remember there was a certain stage when my kids were real young that I noticed that they would be very well behaved with the nanny or the preschool, but they were a lot harder for me to deal with at home. And so I don't know if other people can relate to that. Oh yeah, here it is. Difficult to manage at home, but not at school. I know there were times when my kids were little where I felt like that. So it's just a kind of reminder that people do behave differently in their different kinds of environments. So we talk very directly in this presentation. Also, when we're talking about warning signs, we talk about the warning signs of suicide specifically too, because it's so important to pay attention to those. And here it could be as simple as just talking about this subject of death, or seeming to be preoccupied with death, or really focused on death a lot. If a young person is, if they're creative, like if they're an artist or a writer or something like that, and that theme is coming up in their creations a lot about death, then that could be a sign that they're thinking about suicide. So it's important to pay attention to that. If they are talking about death, or also if they're just talking about feeling hopeless and not feeling like they have a reason to live, or they feel like they're a problem for other people, or they like they don't have a future. These are things to pay attention to. Definitely, if you become aware that somebody is looking for methods, or like researching or learning about ways that people have attempted suicide, then that's a clear sign. And there could be other things that we have heard of, like people, somebody giving away things that are special to them, that they want to go to somebody in particular, or just risky behavior or doing things where they could get hurt. Those are all different examples of things that could be signs that somebody is thinking about it. Also, this can sometimes come as a surprise to people, and it's hard to even think about, but even younger children than teenagers do think about and even attempt suicide. So here again, it could be just seeming to be preoccupied with death, or risky kind of behavior, running out into a street or trying to get out of a car. And it's just important to pay attention to, or even just for changes, behaving differently than usual. Sometimes kids can just seem incredibly irritable and angry all the time, and that's something to pay attention to in a young child, because it could be a warning sign that they've got some serious problem. So we want to talk about warning signs because these are all just things that you might notice, and so that you know what to do. And the most important thing is to reach out and respond. And just to step back a little bit and talk about like how we present this topic when we're talking to the teenagers themselves too, because we do give them the same advice. We talk to them about what the warning signs are of suicide, and we give them this same advice to, if they're worried about somebody, we tell them to not leave that person alone and to directly ask the question. And this again is something that we emphasize with people because it can be, I think people can be afraid to raise the topic. They can be afraid that they're gonna give that idea to somebody if they're not thinking about it already. And so we do know that that's not true, and that it's important to not be afraid to ask the question. You're not going to be giving the person that idea, and you are going to be letting them know that you care about them and that they can talk to you. And so it's important to do that. And then the next thing is to immediately get some help, to not leave that person alone, and to tell an adult. So just to let everybody know that that's the main message that we give to young people too, is to pay attention to the warning signs, and to, if they are concerned about themselves or about somebody else, to talk to somebody, to talk to an adult, that's the most important thing. So shifting back into talking to families, this is what we say to families, to go ahead and not leave that young person alone, to stay with them and ask them the direct question, and then stay with them and get help for them. You can call their doctor, you can call 911. We have the national 988 number now. And so that's the most important thing to do. So as I said, when we're talking to the young people, really it's the same message we go over is what mental health conditions are, how to recognize the warning signs, and then how to get help for yourself or somebody else, which in the presentation for young people, that comes down to talking to an adult. That's the main message. So for us, and we're talking to the adults here, to families or to school staff, we have the additional information in this presentation, which is to bring up how to respond. You do need to talk to your child, and you're going to also need to talk to the school staff and the healthcare professionals to be able to address your child's needs. And these are just some tips for talking to your child or your young person. I think a lot of these are just, this is something that now that my kids are 20 years old, I can say I've been thinking about this, just looking back over their younger years, and feeling really good about one of the things that I really feel good about now is that both of my sons do talk to us, to me and their dad, and they will come to us and talk to us if they're having a problem. And so that's just something that I'm really happy that it's worked out that way. And I think a lot of it has to do with really how you are around your kids. I mean, it just in terms of being open to listening to them and being relaxed, being open about having problems yourself, and getting help for them when you need to. I think that that's something that's been really important in my family, is that we've kind of modeled that ourselves, is that, you know, we've gotten help when we've taken classes or we've gone to counseling, and we've been open about doing that, and that it's been helpful to us. And so I feel like that's just kind of normalized things. So and I think these are really good suggestions too, is to just choose a time, and you know what works in your family, when your child feels okay and safe and comfortable talking to you. One thing I've noticed over the years is I've had a lot of good conversations with my kids in the car. I don't know about other people, but that's something that I've just noticed it works out that way. I don't know if they are maybe more relaxed when they're not like sitting there looking face to face, but instead they're just but for some reason, or whether it's being emotion, whatever it is, but I've noticed that a lot of times my kids will talk to me when we're driving along in the car. And I think just listening and trying not to get upset, and to just listen and be calm in a straightforward way, and follow their lead. Those are just things that I feel like have worked for me. Not that I'm always the best at it, but when it has gone well, that's been what's gone well. And these are some suggestions for questions that you could ask to open up the conversation. And so I kind of like these because they're kind of, like I say, opening a door. You know, can you tell me more about what's happening? Talk to me more about that. Or do you feel like you want to talk to somebody else if you don't want to talk to me? Or, you know, have you had this happen before? Just things that, like I say, would start a conversation rather than just like something that could answer with a yes or a no. And these are some tips for kind of what to try to avoid, I guess. You know, and like this first thing says is to try not to dismiss how they're feeling, or just to say, you know, oh, everybody has that happen, it'll all be okay, is not really going to be too helpful. And it might just kind of make them feel like they can't talk to you. You know, and the questions that they could just give a yes, no answer to, that's not gonna really open anything up. It just kind of stops things. And lastly, to just, you know, there's also a way of asking a question that lets somebody know like what you want to hear from them. And that's not a great idea too, if you can avoid that, because it just kind of closes the door instead of getting some information that you can work with. And last, this is especially true if there's any concern about suicide, is to not promise that you'll keep a secret or keep a confidence, because you might not be able to. If somebody's saying something to you that you're going to need to share with somebody else to be able to get them help, then you don't want to promise them that you're not going to tell anybody. And then after you've talked to your kid, or, you know, in addition to talking to your kid, if they're having trouble at school, and they probably are going to be, if they're, you know, you're going to need to talk to the staff of the school, their teachers and the staff, and here again, I just think, just thinking back over my years of working with the school districts, just want to share that I know that this is hard. This is not always easy. And it can feel kind of vulnerable. It can be hard to talk to strangers and the people who are working at your kid's school about problems that your child is having. And I think it's just understandable that these are sometimes mental health issues are hard for all of us to talk about openly. And I just want to share that that it is hard. It's also necessary. Nothing can ever get better if you're embarrassed to talk about what the problem is kind of the way I look at it. So the best way to be helpful to your child, and your child is going to need you to advocate for them, is to try to rise above or get past any hesitation that you have about being open, and to just go ahead and be as open and transparent as you can and share what it is that you're worried about. And every school is different. There are going to be procedures that you have to go through if it gets to the point of asking for accommodations at school, getting an IEP or a 504 plan. It's not as simple as you just ask for what you want. There is a whole process. But the first thing to start with is talking to your teachers and asking them, like, what's the procedure? Who do you have to talk to or write to or whatever it is to start the process of getting some help for your child. And here again, I'm just going to say the earlier the better, because it is a process and it takes some time. So in addition to talking to the school staff, it's really also very helpful to talk to your pediatrician. I know my pediatrician, or my kid's pediatrician, helped refer us to mental health providers too. And those healthcare providers were also really helpful in terms of helping me understand what was going on with my child, so that I could then communicate with the school to talk to them. So it is important to learn as much as you can. And like I say, be open and share information between each other, because it is going to take all of you working together to get the services that your child needs, and to really get them the help that they need. And like I say, this all takes time too. It starts out with just identifying with your teacher that there's a problem, and then you have to request a meeting, and then they have like 30 days to do that. And then they're going to do assessments and evaluations of your child, and then you're going to get results back from that. And then you're going to have another meeting, and then they'll talk about, what kind of accommodations to work out in the classroom. And take it from me, this can really take up basically the better part of a school year. You start out in the fall asking for help, and in the spring, you're meeting to review the test results and figure out what to do. And so it's important to learn everything that you can, and also to take care of yourself. And the main thing that I always kept in mind is, like it says here, to remember you have a voice in your child's mental health care. And you are a very important voice for your child when it comes to their school programming too. I remember I reminded myself all the time, because you'd be at these meetings with all these people. There's 5 staff from the school, there's somebody else from the district, there's a psychologist. And you realize, I would realize, I'm the only person at this table who is, all I care about is what's best for my child. Everybody else has other stuff they have to worry about, but I'm the one person at this table who is here that only has my child's best interest at heart. And so that's what you need to keep in mind, I think, because that's what your child needs, is for you to be their advocate. Oh, and You know what? That's a video that I think I'm actually going to skip, if you don't mind, because I think there's an issue going on with the sound here. And so rather than take up time, I just want to move along. But I will put into the chat later how you can find the video on YouTube so you can watch it. So I think that would be a better idea. This is a little word cloud here, just about emotional reactions. That video is about empathy, so I will encourage everybody to go find it on YouTube. But we talk about empathy a lot in NAMI classes, and it's something that's really helpful in terms of being a family member to try to develop empathy for your loved one and to also help advocate for them. And one of the other things that is kind of foundational to a lot of NAMI's classes is this theory about the emotional reactions that people have to mental health crisis. This was something that really impacted me a lot when I took a first NAMI class where I understood this, and it comes down to this research that shows that people who either experience a mental health crisis themselves or who witness their loved one in a crisis, they tend to have predictable emotional reactions to those situations. And they're similar to the emotional reactions that people have to catastrophe. And there are different stages that people go through, not necessarily in order, but these are just some of the feelings that people experience when they're in this kind of situation. And so we talk about empathy, and this is just a reminder to everybody who's in this kind of situation, that if you're having any or all of these feelings, it's a lot, as you can see, but it's normal. So that's just something to realize and to have kind of some empathy for ourselves too, when we're in a hard situation, that that these are all some of the feelings that we could be having, and that it's difficult, and that's normal. So we all need to try and view each other with empathy. And again, it's also important to, one of those feelings, it can be vulnerability, can be defensiveness too, but it's important to go ahead and try and be open with the teachers and the healthcare providers that can help your child, because that's the best way for them to ultimately be successful. So I'm going to try and just, these are just some last minute reminders, just to encourage you to hang in there, to be open and communicating with the people who can help your kid, to help share them and educate them about what things are helpful to you at home. And you can offer information to the school that you got from your healthcare providers or that you learned from NAMI. And we can all just help by encouraging bringing mental health education into the classroom and kind of fighting the stigma by talking about it in the open. And again, just to learn what you can about special education. And there's a great organization I'm going to give a plug for is Parents Helping Parents here in Santa Clara County. They're really helpful for people with school-age children to figure out how to get through that whole system. And here again, just encourage you to also talk to your healthcare providers. And these are just some kind of sample questions that you could ask teachers if you need to. Again, just a reminder that it's helpful to you're kind of going to need to be the person who's the link between all these different professionals and who are helping your child. And here again, also, it can really be helpful for you to connect with other families who are dealing with similar issues. And you can do that either by taking a class with NAMI, either the basics class or family to family, or go to family support groups. And these are just some reminders too, again, about how you can help your child look forward to the future. And there's just some more information about other programs that NAMI has for young people, but I think I'm gonna finish this up here now and stop the screen sharing here so that Tiffany can share her story. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Alexia. It was a wonderful presentation, and if anyone has any questions, please feel free to continue to put them in the Q&A section. But all right, I'm just going to introduce myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I graduated with an associate's and a bachelor's degree in psychology. I am the Community and Media Relations Liaison here at NAMI Santa Clara County, and I also work part-time for a wedding planner. I loved hanging out with my late dog, Kiwi, who passed away in May of last year, and I love finding ways to incorporate his spirit every day. If any of you have a pet, I'm certain you also love to spend time with them as well. I know Ravina also has Yoshi and Mew Mew. So I also just wanted to get into my mental health conditions and share a little bit about my story. So my mental health conditions include major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and an eating disorder called ARFID, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. But today I'm going to mostly be discussing my experience with depression. So during fall of 2020, my first semester after transferring to university from community college, I became involved in a mental health program that worked underneath my university's counseling services. And I loved being able to learn more about mental health resources, how to support students, and became really passionate about psychology. But I also noticed that my own mental health symptoms began to weigh pretty heavily on me. My beloved dog Kiwi, who I mentioned earlier, fell gravely ill in 2021. And when my family had welcomed him into our lives about a decade ago, he was already an aging dog. And I felt like my life truly began on the day that I met him. He was there for everything, my whole mental health journey, from panic attacks during high school to welcome home snuggles. When I returned home from being hospitalized for suicidal ideations during college, he was just so loyal and so understanding. If you're a parent or a pet parent, caregiver, or maybe you just have a loved one, you understand that anytime your loved one is sick, you do anything to ease their discomfort. So when Kiwi was diagnosed with his terminal illnesses, I adapted everything to give him the most comfortable and around-the-clock care during the last 2 years of his life. He was my best friend and my number one support system. So watching my best friend fall deeper into later stages of his conditions felt like life was ending for me as well. I used to tell myself that when he goes, I'm going too. And I felt like I could not live without him. And that dread of his passing was also beginning to impact my self-harm and my suicidal ideations. I felt empty and had no desire to live. And I decided to speak with my mental health care team. And we decided it'd be best if I went up on medication and participated in an intensive outpatient program. They encouraged me to find a support system, in addition to Kiwi and my loved ones, that can bring me a sense of purpose and empowerment. And I actually found an opportunity that would allow me to prioritize Kiwi's care, but also find ways to empower myself, my passions, and my community, because those were really important to me. And my friend actually told me about the Miss America organization and her positive experiences with it. I never participated in pageants before, so I was pretty skeptical. And the Miss Santa Clara competition was coming up, and I decided, why not? I was born and raised in Santa Clara, and I adore my hometown with all my heart. I did theater in high school, and I love Grey's Anatomy, so why not perform a monologue by the character Christina Yang? And I prepared myself for the competition, and I centered my community service initiative around the importance of mental health prioritization for youth. And it's kind of interesting how as adults, our inner child comes into our life. So imagine the toolkit children can have for life when they have that mental health care and support early on in their life. I actually met with a few different local psychologists and created a multi-step plan for my plan of action for how I'd go about this initiative. I envisioned a Miss Santa Clara that could say, yes, I take antidepressants every day and I have a mental health diagnosis, because I would have loved to hear that from a title holder as a little girl. And when competition day came, my goals were simple: share my love for my city, learn from the incredible panel of women, judges, volunteers, and myself, advocate for mental health awareness, and then head home to cuddle with Kiwi after. I completed the 10-minute interview and promptly cried from embarrassment after. I walked in heels and a long dress for the first time in years, and almost held up a peace sign while walking in my evening gown because I was so nervous. But the entire day, I was in awe of the brilliant women around me. One was in medical school, some in graduate school. One was a piano playing star. Others were professional dancers, singers, coding champions, scholars. And some actually were brave mental health advocates and shared their bit about their mental health experiences. And they all had the kindest hearts and were service driven. And I still greatly admire them today. So when they announced Miss Santa Clara, I was incredibly confused when they said my name. I thought it was that Steve Harvey Miss Universe 2015 moment, if anyone's familiar with that, when they incorrectly called Columbia's name. But I still felt deep gratitude during my Miss Santa Clara year and learned how to advocate for others, even Kiwi, while also advocating for myself. I was able to care for him fully and also begin to find ways to support myself. I was able to love him while also finding ways to love myself too. And although Kiwi is no longer present, I still have his love, his spirit, and his memory. And I'm so grateful to share him with you today as well. By stepping out of my comfort zone and finding ways to have more support and to grow, I learned so much more about mental health care for all. And I invite you to find ways to care for yourself and others. I reached out to NAMI-Santa Clara County and joined their peer support courses, began volunteering, and a year later, I'm grateful to work alongside the kind-hearted people here at NAMI-SCC, like Alexia, like Ravina, like so many of you here today. No matter how daunting a challenge feels, I remember there are so many communities out there ready to support and uplift others with open arms, just like NAMI-Santa Clara County. And although we just met today or have met today, just know that I'm rooting for you as well. And thank you for letting me share my story. And also just talk a bit about Kiwi. I have a few photos of him as well. I wish we could all show our pets. But thank you so much for listening, and also listening to Alexia's presentation. We sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you so much, both of you. Thank you, Alexia, and thank you, Tiffany, for sharing your story and for sharing your journey with Kiwi. It was very, very heart touching. So I was literally tearing up here just listening to your journey. But thanks, Alexia, as well for the presentation and for sharing your journey as well. And I really appreciate you both joining us today. But before that, I think let's see whether we have any questions for Alexia and Tiffany. I do see some comments here. Stacy Bebo says that some schools have wellness centers or chill room where the students can go at lunch. This is a safe space for students if they need and want a safe place to go to. Then I do see some thank yous, and thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Alexia. And then says Miss Alexia, very interesting presentation. I see thank yous here. Any other questions? Anyone
Thank you
has
for
any
the
questions?
comment about the wellness centers. That is a really wonderful thing that we're starting to have at schools. And again, that's something that I've been really pleased to see. It's a big improvement from when I was in high school, when we didn't have anything like that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely a safe space. Yeah. Okay, let me check if there's any questions in the Q&A sections. I don't see any. If that is the case, okay, yeah, I have some comment. Thank you for sharing your story. Tiffany, thank you for sharing your story. You're an amazing young lady.
Thank you so much.
Okay, if that is it, I'm going to let everyone go and enjoy the rest of your evening on a Tuesday, very cold night. So thank you everyone who joined us tonight. And thank you again, Alexia. Thank you, Tiffany, for joining us.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year to everyone. And we will see you again next month, now the second Tuesday of the month. I believe it's on the 15th of February. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Alexia. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Ravina. Thank you all.
Yeah.